Grab a human skull, pry open the jaw, and pull a molar straight out of its socket. There is no bone breaking, because nothing was ever fused together. Today, we are going to see how a heavy mouthful of solid enamel manages to float completely disconnected from the skeleton. A dentist extracting a wisdom tooth is not chiseling through a skeletal bond. They are simply severing a fleshy hammock. Every single piece of enamel currently sitting in a mouth is hovering in mid-air. Or rather, suspended in mid-gum. If bone touched bone directly, the simple act of chewing a hard pretzel would fracture the lower mandible. The impact would shatter the skull. To prevent this, biology completely divorced the tooth from the jaw. But that creates a massive structural problem. A bite generates intense crushing force. When heavy molars grind down on a piece of ice, they push downward with immense pressure. The tooth is not a bone. It is a crown of enamel over a core of dentin, and it acts like a hammer. If it floats, why doesn't the hammer just fall out, or crash through the bottom of the jaw? The answer lies in a biological shock absorber called the periodontal ligament. Instead of a single rigid band of tissue, it is millions of individual, microscopic cables. Rather than a hard connection, it acts as a dynamic, living harness holding the enamel in a delicate balance. These threads latch onto the root of the tooth on one side, and anchor into the socket wall on the other. They form a woven sling. This sling completely encircles the root. Now, consider the physical boundaries of this space. The trench located directly between the root and the bone is remarkably tight. It is a measurement so brutally small that a grain of table salt could never wedge its way inside. The distance is a mere fraction of a hair's breadth. If the gap is that microscopically thin, and a sudden bite delivers such heavy downward violence, what keeps the root from immediately slamming into the floor of the socket? Before we examine the fluid dynamics preventing that collision, consider subscribing to the Minecraft and liking this video to explore more of the hidden architecture inside us. Those microscopic cables are made of collagen. The same flexible protein found in earlobes and skin. Collagen stretches. When teeth clamp down on a piece of tough jerky, they do not stand still. The entire white crown sinks downward. It plunges into the gum line. As it sinks, the tiny collagen cables stretching diagonally from the jaw to the root are pulled taut. They do not push back. They pull up. It works exactly like a backyard trampoline. The jumper pushes the mat down, and the springs around the edges pull upward, arresting the fall just before hitting the grass. A tooth is a trampoline mat in reverse. The deeper it sinks, the harder the millions of fibers pull up against it. The crushing force of a heavy bite is entirely converted into tension. It is distributed evenly across the whole surface of the socket. This dissipates the violent energy before it can splinter the fragile bone. This entire plunge takes milliseconds. But tension alone is not enough to stop a crushing impact. Something else is happening inside that microscopic trench. If the hammock were entirely dry, a sudden, sharp impact, like accidentally biting down on a hidden olive pit, would snap the collagen threads instantly. The tooth would tear free. The suspension system requires a damper. Biology provides one through a highly precise liquid barrier. The gap separating the tooth from the bone measures exactly 0.2 millimeters across. Inside this void, there is blood. There is tissue fluid. If every heavy chew drives intense pressure into this tiny, fluid-filled space, What stops the compressed liquid from rupturing the gum tissue and blowing the tooth out of the socket? The bone surrounding the tooth is not solid. It is deeply porous, acting like a hard sponge. When the enamel sinks into the socket, it squeezes the fluid trapped in the gap. Liquid cannot be compressed. Instead, it is forced outward. The pressurized fluid is violently shoved into the microscopic holes within the jawbone. This operates as a hydraulic brake. Engineers use this same principle to stop heavy doors from slamming. A piston pushes oil through tiny valves, slowing the momentum. The human jaw invented the hydraulic damper millions of years before industrial mechanics. Watch a slow-motion capture of a boxer taking a heavy glove to the mouth. The teeth do not just sit rigidly in place. They compress into the skull. Fluid rushes out through tiny pores in the bone, absorbing the chaotic energy of the punch. Then, they rebound. 40 milliseconds later, the pressure drops. The stretched collagen cables snap back to their original length, yanking the tooth upward. The fluid is sucked back out of the bone pores, refilling the gap. The tooth rises into its resting position. It resets. Ready for the next impact. Chewing is not an occasional event. It is a relentless mechanical grind. A person will bring their teeth crashing together millions of times over a lifespan. If the root were rigidly anchored, the repeated microscopic vibrations would cause metal fatigue in the bone. Over decades, the jaw would simply crack from the accumulated stress. Crocodiles solved this problem by treating teeth as disposable. Their sharp cones are fused directly to the bone. When a tooth breaks from the massive force, the crocodile discards it and grows a new one. They cycle through thousands in a lifetime. Humans do not have that luxury. We get one set of adult molars to last 50, 60, 80 years. Because we cannot replace them, we must protect them. The suspension system is the only reason a human can survive a lifetime of eating without shattering their own face. But there is a strange vulnerability built into this floating architecture. Because the tooth hangs by threads, it is highly sensitive to sustained pressure. A sharp, heavy bite is absorbed easily. A hydraulic damper handles fast impacts flawlessly. However, a slow, continuous push overrides the shock absorbers. If a light, steady force is applied to the side of a crown for hours, the fluid does not violently rush into the pores. It slowly seeps away. The collagen cables on one side are stretched tight, while the cables on the opposite side are compressed. The bone detects this sustained tension. Cells called osteoclasts arrive on the compressed side and begin dissolving the hard bone to make room. On the stretched side, osteoblasts arrive and lay down fresh bone to fill in the widening gap. The tooth moves. It drifts through the solid jawbone like a ship plowing through slow-moving ice. This biological loophole is the entire basis of orthodontics. Braces do not forcibly bend bone. They simply apply a relentless push that tricks the suspension system into migrating. The tooth reshapes the skull around it, just to relieve the tension on its microscopic hammock. It is a strange realization to look at an anatomical diagram. We spend a lifetime brushing enamel, tapping on incisors, assuming they are permanent white rocks cemented into the skull. They feel entirely rigid. Bite down lightly right now, and the sensation implies complete solidity. But that solidity is an illusion. The firmness you feel is just the immense, balanced tension of millions of microscopic cables holding a heavy stone steady in a tiny pool of pressurized fluid. Deep beneath the pink surface of the gum line, nothing is still and nothing is truly attached. Your teeth are just heavy white stones, floating in the dark, tethered only by an endless sea of biological threads. If this changed how you see your own body, subscribe, there is far more hidden inside you that we have not explored yet. A like and a comment genuinely help this channel reach more curious minds, and that support is what makes it possible to keep producing these documentaries. Tell us in the comments what we should explore next.